Please continue, Mr. Hoffman, Eleanor said pleasantly, wheeling to the front of the room. You were explaining why it was necessary to destroy the accessibility accommodation for a disabled person, in violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Fair Housing Act, and, as of last month, Senate Bill 147, which I'd personally signed into law. The silence was deafening until one board member whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Oh my God, that's the governor." Eleanor's smile was razor-sharp. Indeed it is. Now, shall we discuss reasonable accommodations and the $250,000 fine your association is potentially facing? Or would you prefer to hear about the state investigation launching tomorrow morning? The next morning's sunrise revealed an astonishing transformation on Michael's property. A construction crew, not from the HOA this time, but from the state's top accessibility contractor, was already hard at work building a new ramp. This one featured premium cedar, professional-grade non-slip surfacing, and subtle lighting that actually enhanced the home's appearance. More surprising still were the volunteers helping them. Richard Hoffman, sweating through his polo shirt as he carried lumber, Karen Mills, painting handrails with painstaking precision, and every other HOA board member working under the watchful eye of state officials. News vans lined the street. Reporters thrust microphones toward the workers, capturing sound bites for the evening news. Mr. Hoffman, do you regret your actions now? Richard looked directly into the camera, his carefully crafted PR response forgotten as Governor Davis Wilson wheeled past. I regret not understanding that accessibility isn't about aesthetics or property values. It's about human dignity. And yes, I regret not recognizing the governor's name when I saw the documentation. That was unfortunate. By evening, the ramp was complete, better than Michael's original design. As the crowd dispersed, Eleanor conducted a brief press conference from Michael's driveway. Today isn't about who I am, she declared, cameras flashing. It's about who we are as a community, a state, and a society. What happened here could have happened to anyone's parent, child, or sibling. Today, I'm announcing the Accessibility First initiative, requiring every HOA in our state to create rapid approval processes for accessibility modifications. Later that night, after the cameras had gone and the excitement died down, Michael and Eleanor sat on the porch, sharing a bottle of wine. You didn't have to go nuclear on them, Michael said, but he was smiling. Eleanor laughed. I didn't do it because I'm the governor. I did it because I'm your sister, and because sometimes people need a dramatic reminder that compassion trumps conformity. Michael raised his glass to ramps, revolts, and remarkable sisters. And to HOAs who now think twice before messing with the Davis family, Eleanor added with a wink. 3 weeks later, a package arrived for every resident of Oakwood Estates, a commemorative brick from the original demolished ramp, mounted on a plaque that read, "Remember that behind every rule is a human being." Underneath, in smaller text, a gift from Governor Eleanor Davis Wilson and Michael Davis. Michael Davis wiped sweat from his brow as he hammered the final nail into the wheelchair ramp. 3 days of work under the scorching sun had produced a sturdy oak structure with a gentle slope, perfect for his sister Eleanor's upcoming stay. The ramp wasn't just functional. Michael had taken care to match the honey-colored stain to his home's trim and add decorative handrails that complemented the porch columns. As he admired his handiwork, a sharp voice cut through his satisfaction. "Excuse me, what exactly do you think you're doing?" Michael turned to find Richard Hoffman, HOA president, standing on the sidewalk with his arms crossed, designer sunglasses perched on his nose, and a tablet clutched in his manicured hand. Behind him, 2 other board members photographed the ramp from multiple angles. "It's a wheelchair ramp for my sister," Michael explained. "She's having surgery next week." Richard's thin smile didn't reach his eyes. "I don't see any approved modification requests in our system. You know the rules, Davis. No exterior changes without board approval." "It's temporary," Michael countered. "She'll only need it for a few months." "Temporary or not, you're violating at least 6 different bylaws." Richard tapped aggressively on his tablet. This monstrosity is bringing down property values as we speak. That evening, Michael's phone rang. It was Eleanor. Hey Ellie, how are you feeling about next week? Nervous, but ready to get it over with, his sister replied. How's the ramp coming along? Michael glanced out the window at his now controversial creation. About that, we might have a problem. Michael spent the next 3 days locked in a bureaucratic nightmare, filling out forms, submitting measurements, and providing medical documentation to the HOA. Every submission was met with new requirements and longer waiting periods. On Thursday morning, he left for work feeling defeated but determined. The surgery was scheduled for Monday and Eleanor would arrive Tuesday. Approval or not, the ramp was staying put. When Michael turned onto his street that evening, his stomach dropped. A crowd had gathered in front of his house. A pickup truck with premium Demolished services emblazoned on the side sat in his driveway. 2 men in work clothes were attacking his ramp with crowbars and power saws, while Richard Hoffman supervised with obvious satisfaction. Michael slammed on his brakes and leaped from his car. Stop! What the hell are you doing? Enforcing compliance, Richard answered smoothly, holding up a document. Section 12.4 authorizes the HOA to remove unauthorized structures and bill the homeowner. You've had ample warning, Michael. The neighbors watched in uncomfortable silence as Michael's rage turned to desperation. My sister had her surgery yesterday, he said, his voice breaking. She's being discharged early. She'll be here tomorrow morning, not next week. Where is she supposed to go? Karen Mills, another board member, stepped forward. The Holiday Inn has accessible rooms. Perhaps he should have considered logistics before breaking the rules. As the demolition crew loaded the last pieces of his ramp into their truck, Michael pulled out his phone. His hands shook as he scrolled to Eleanor's number. I need to talk to you right away, he said when she answered. Something's happened, and you need to know before you leave the hospital. Michael, what's wrong? The concern in Eleanor's voice was evident. The HOA just destroyed your ramp, and they have no idea who you really are. The Oakwood Estates monthly HOA meeting was unusually crowded. Word had spread about the ramp incident, and homeowners packed the community center meeting room, whispering among themselves. Michael sat silently in the back, his expression unreadable. Richard Hoffman called the meeting to order with a sharp rap of his gavel. Before we address the agenda items, I'd like to address the Davis situation, as I'm sure many of you have questions. The room fell quiet. The board acted within its authority to maintain community standards. Mr. Davis failed to follow established protocols for property modifications. While we sympathize with his sister's condition, rules exist for a reason. The community center doors swung open dramatically. A sleek black SUV with government plates had pulled up outside, visible through the windows. 2 state troopers entered, scanning the room before nodding to someone outside. Eleanor Davis Wilson wheeled herself into the room, her gubernatorial staff flanking her. Despite her recent surgery, she projected commanding authority in her tailored suit. A state flag pin gleamed on her lapel, and her press secretary followed, already recording. Richard's mouth fell open mid-sentence. Karen Mills dropped her tablet with a clatter.